horror fans have had pretty decent luck over the past few years when it comes to television. American Horror Story and The Walking Dead both became ratings juggernauts, guaranteeing their survival for a few more seasons while delivering on story, character, and imagination. The Bates Motel opened for business, and even Fox tried to get in on the act with Sleepy Hollow and The Following. Still, people like us can never get enough of something dark and gripping to watch to keep our night minds racing. That's why I'm looking forward to a wickedly entertaining 2017 when it comes to TV. Network executives are paying attention to what we like, and it looks like they're about to deliver. Have you by any chance heard of a little video game franchise from a while back that goes by the name of BioShock? If you have, I hope you'll be as excited as I was to hear that the writer for all 3 games, Ken Levine, has been hired as the writer and director of a brand new live-action adaptation of the Twilight Zone. But when it comes to the Twilight Zone, there's always a twist, and this occasion is no different. CBS has hired interactive media company Interlude and Ken Levine to write an audience-influenced version of the Twilight Zone. Viewers will be able to step in and become a part of the story and change and adapt it based on what they feel. There's no word yet on how exactly this is going to play out and to what length CBS is going to have this project run, but the immersive approach of a viewer interactive story in something as big as the Twilight Zone is a very exciting prospect. And with Ken Levine at the helm, you can trust that it's going to be dark, mysterious, and underscored with a professional writer's focus on story, character, and meaning. Will this be something complex enough to warrant an explanation study? It's too early to tell, but I'm going to have a lot of fun finding out. Speaking of revivals, if you haven't heard already, the most relentless zombie on television is coming back for more. TNT has greenlit a return of Tales from the Crypt with a full season order of 10 episodes, which will play alongside 2 other original horror-based shows in a full block on the channel. Unfortunately, there are 2 bits of information surrounding this announcement that already have some people scared. The revival of Tales from the Crypt is being produced by M. Night Shyamalan, a name that inspires dread, admiration, or a strange mix of both depending on how you feel. There are writers under him for the show. Television almost always utilizes multiple writers and directors for their episodes, so if you're worried, don't panic quite yet. I'll also add that his recent movie, The Visit, while still being rather polarizing for audiences, wasn't a bad trip to the movies. In addition to Tales from the Crypt, TNT has ordered a show titled Time of Death, an anthology series telling one story over the course of a season, with each episode playing in live time, taking viewers hour by hour through a single long night of hell. The first season will follow a murderous psychopath who returns to his Midwestern hometown during the annual county fair to exact revenge on a community he believes destroyed his life. The formatting for this show sounds a lot like a hybrid of American Horror Story and 24, but I have been craving another anthology series like American Horror Story for a while. As for the final show in TNT's developing horror block, Creatures, this is a project I'm not even sure will make it on air once news begins to spread about its premise. Stop me if you've heard this story before. Creatures, now in development, is a sophisticated psychological thriller that tells the disturbing tale of 2 former best friends who, at 12 years old, tried to cut out their classmate's heart as a sacrifice to an internet boogeyman they invented called Mr. Gorgie. 15 years later, the 2 young women have been released from a psychiatric institute into their small town in Alaska, but it's not long before they start to feel the alluring and terrifying presence of Mr. Gorgie once again. Yep, I'm serious. Here, I'll read it again for you. The disturbing tale of 2 former best friends who, at 12 years old, tried to cut out their classmate's heart as a sacrifice to an internet boogeyman. Oof. You know, it's almost like I've heard this story before, like it was really recent, almost way too recent to be considered respectful to draw inspiration from. Like, less than 2 years ago kind of recent and highly publicized. Oh man, what was that story? Something by Chuck Palahniuk or maybe even Joe Hill? You know, I can't quite put my finger on it. Is making this show an act in poor taste? Is it disrespectful? That's for the public to decide, I suppose. It's not very tactful in any case. We'll see how this one turns out in terms of quality when TNT's horror block hits the air, if it's even allowed to play the pilot episode by the time everyone else hears about this. And finally, some news you very well may have already heard. After 25 years, Twin Peaks returns for a 3rd season on Showtime next year. Principal photography was just completed as evidenced by a Twitter photo from Machen Amick, who will be surprising her role as Shelley Johnson. The third season is once again led by Mark Frost and David Lynch, who wrote the storyline for the episodes with David Lynch directing. It is very, very much a faithful continuation of the series. We would have seen it reappear sooner, but David Lynch was hesitant about working with Showtime if he couldn't have full creative power again, and several talks had to be hammered out between the two parties, which did delay production. But at long last, they granted him the rights he was looking for, and the story continues. Season 3 is now in post-production and will be premiering in 2017 with a very big number of original cast members returning for their roles. So with all of that ahead of us next year and the inevitable 7th season of American Horror Story in 2017, TV is looking really good for creatures of the night who need their fill of dark media. Meanwhile, things are heating up on the game front with footage from Outlast 2 finally arriving during PAX East this past weekend. Outlast 2 takes a wide departure in feeling and location from the previous game, placing you in the role of Blank Langerman, who's come to Arizona with his wife to investigate the murder of a pregnant woman in the country. A helicopter crash ends up separating you two and stranding your character alone on a farm with only your camera to keep you company, and it becomes very clear very quickly that you're not in friendly territory as you try to reunite with your wife. The game's developer, Red Barrels, is really trying to keep a lid on what the full story is, what the teasers mean, and what the meaning of the game is in general. It's evident from the article on Polygon.com that the story has so much mystery to it that not even the creators who worked on it can fully agree about its artistic meaning. It's apparently been written with definitive explanations in mind, but the delivery of the story has been done in such a way that you may have to put together an investigation of your own to crack it. In other words, it sounds like Outlast 2 is going to be our kind of experience. Outlast 2 will be available on all platforms, including Mac computers this fall, a wise decision for a release window on this much-anticipated horror sequel. Joining Outlast 2 in autumn is another appropriate title, Friday the 13th. Believe it or not, this one actually began as a Kickstarter project by the company Gun Media, who were seeking funding for a game called Slasher Volume 1, Summer Camp. During the media blitz for that campaign, Gun Media acquired the rights to make it an official Friday the 13th game, and after the reskin, the project took off, sailing past their $700,000 goal by more than $120,000. The project doesn't have any official release date, but Kickstarter rewards list the estimated delivery window as October of this year. Friday the 13th will be available on PC, Xbox One, and PS4, and allow players to be either one of the camp counselors trying to escape from Jason, or as Jason Voorhees himself, hunting them down one by one in timed sessions for a classic murder spree. A similar project, Dead by Daylight, is coming out on June 14th with the same premise. Play as a potential victim trying to escape or as one of a few different killer types, using the environment and tools around you to achieve your goal. This is currently only available for desktop computers running a Windows operating system, but if you can't wait for Friday the 13th, you can satiate your hunger months in advance and play hide and seek with deadly consequences. And of course, what horror game news coverage would be complete without the announcement of another installment in the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise? On April 22nd, a teaser that was slowly developing on ScottGames.com revealed itself to be another Five Nights title. Many assumed the teaser was shaping up to be for a new project by Scott Cawthon, but now we have Five Nights 5, Sister Location, which firmly puts Five Nights at Freddy's right next to major icons in horror franchise history by breaking the trilogy rule not just once but twice, with 2 different spin-off titles resulting in a total of 6 installments of an intellectual property. No word yet on what exactly Sister Location is going to have in store, but if the internet leaves this game with a much higher answers to questions reward than we got from Five Nights 4, it'll be worth having. Fans are still waiting for the overhaul of FNAF World after its previously much criticized launch, and it's anyone's guess which game will drop first. That's all that we've got going on in the horror and dark media world right now for announcements and updates. For all the news that's fit for fear, this has been Midnight Pulse. Once more, I'm Nick Nocturne, and like your favorite frightening shows from back in the day, I'll be back again real soon. Sleep tight.